This is our annual Veterans Day observance. Normally, as you know, we have it in Browns Memorial Park. We all know Browns Memorial Park is named after the first African-American resident in Atlantic City who passed away in World War II, Harold Brown. Now, we're going to start off with an invocation with Reverend Eric McCoy, who is a retired U.S. Marine.
To recognize your veterans, continue to understand that we served on the wall. So you can sleep.
Yeah, it's a great day. It's a great day because today is Veterans Day and we honor and salute our veterans. I often say it's because of the hard work of our veterans and those who serve and continue to serve. That is why this country is the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Our keynote speaker today is a brother who has a story to tell. He was in the Navy. He was in the Navy band. He's been an educator. He was in a almost fatal battle-related incident, but he came through. He's an Atlantic City resident, a Third Ward resident, Mayor, just to underline that. And we salute him for all that he has done. You can Hassan Abdur-Raheem was our speaker for this morning. Brother Hassan.
One of the things you may notice is that I'm a musician, so I've stood before crowds way larger than this. But I'm so nervous right now, it's senseless. I think he must have invited me to do this because he's seen me playing. Some of y'all have seen me playing around town. But I got to tell you something. I'm honored to be in front of you. The veterans, my elder veterans, please stand. Please. On the internet, well, if you're able, okay. I'm gonna be you guys' newest member. When I finish speaking today, you'll understand why. Because the call to action is gonna be on. I'm gonna start with myself. I'm gonna try to beat you guys on your speech time.
Take your time.
You know, you told me 20 minutes yesterday. I told you I had 11 minutes and 5 seconds. So I might stretch that out just a little bit. First of all, my wife said that somebody had their Cracker Jack on and blah, blah, blah. I didn't let her know I had mine in the bag. This is the only thing that still fits. Okay? This dates back 50 years or so. I don't even remember, but it was in the 70s when I went into the Navy. And I'm going to share a little bit of my story with you. First of all, if I didn't say good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, as my brother greeted me, and for everyone else, which means peace be upon you. I'd like to thank Councilman Shabazz for offering me this exciting opportunity to speak for this very significant occasion. I also acknowledge the VIPs, Mayor Small. Someone asked me yesterday, was the mayor going to be there? I said, I don't know. He's the mayor. He's busy, and if he can, he'll be there. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to sideline for a minute. I'm not from here. I don't think I've ever personally met Marty Small, but I even heard a dude across the alley from my house talking about him one day. Man, Marty's a good dude. Been looking out for the kids forever. I go somewhere else. Marty. So it's like, okay, Marty's the dude. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Hassan Abdur-Raheem, Third Ward.
You can move to the first now, you know that, right?
You got a suitable place, we might do that. We're looking to size down, I think. What do they call it? Downsize. So yesterday, my wife, she did a lecture at Councilman Shabazz's class. What was the name of the class?
Human Condition and World Religion.
Human Condition and World Religion. And it was an interesting crowd, and I think you did well. And as we left, something came to mind that I shared with Kaleem. Can I call you that instead of Councilman Shabazz? I call you Kaleem all the other times.
Kaleem is good.
Okay. Something I shared as we were walking to the car, I said, you know, I just realized a really big change. I'm Muslim. In 1976, I was proud to join the Navy. But I checked, no religious preference, not because of shame, but because of the climate for Muslims at the time. I wanted to serve my country, but I had to hide that. I didn't have to, but at 20 years old, I felt the need. And I served in the United States Navy Band. Maybe you all don't go farther back, but my uncle, who's 96 years old, he knows that would have been a fairy tale in his time. That's why I salute those ahead of me, because I got to do that. I'm a little emotional sometimes. I'm gonna try to get past this and just get through what I got to do. But that's a touching point. Anyway, here I am, and I'm gonna start today by thanking all of those among us who, despite the risk and sacrifice, raised their hand to serve and defend this beautiful country that we call home, our veterans. As well as our active duty service members, guardsmen, and reservists. The grace of God and your service has helped keep our country and its citizens safe and free. If you're able, well, you've stood before, so I'm not going to do that part. You don't have to stand up again. Anyway, I can't stop applauding our veterans, especially our elders. Also, a special thanks to the mothers, fathers, spouses, children, and other family members of our military men and women. Your love and support are critical to the success of our service people. I forgot to bring one of my props in, my United States Veterans cap. But when people see the cap, they say to me, "Thank you for your service," which I appreciate. The program shows me somewhere, I think it says retired, but that doesn't apply to my naval service. I'm a retired public school teacher. I did some work in Atlantic City as a sub, but I retired in Pleasantville School District. And as a service, I think that's a tremendous service too. Think about this. Only person I think that promotes education more than me is my wife, which is probably how I got away from being a computer programmer analyst to being a school teacher. So anyway, I want you to think about it. The U.S. currently has more than 1.5 million active duty service personnel. What if they were uneducated? Okay, I just threw a rock out there about how big education is. And I'm acknowledging educators not only because I am one, but because we couldn't be a mayor, a former mayor. I'm sorry I didn't acknowledge you before. Our former mayor's here. You still say mayor guardian afterwards? I think so. Anyway, he's in our presence. But you wouldn't be any of these things if you hadn't learned. So that's enough education, except for the way I am. I sometimes hear jokes about the military standard of procedure. The standards and procedures are very helpful. When beginning a new topic or concept, before teaching the students what they do not know, a teacher should ask a few questions to find out if there's anything that they already do know about the topic, and sometimes to get them to participate. I'm going to employ that technique today. Since today is Veterans Day, let's start there. What was Veterans Day originally named, and why do we celebrate it?
Armistice Day.
Armistice Day. I'm a teacher. You raise your hand next time, young man.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And okay. Yeah, he's right. And it was started after when some unknown soldiers, I didn't put the whole story in here, but some unknown soldiers in different countries were buried at important places like the Arc de Triomphe in France. And they called it Armistice Day to mark the end of the war of all wars. And little did they know that World War II was going to come up. But at the time, they thought they had seen the biggest thing that the world could ever see. Okay, so in a few brief words, what does the word veteran mean as it relates to the military? Speak up, please. Somebody who served. Are you waving the flag or waving your hand to answer? I'm picking you. But I'm just fixing you. What's your answer? That's what I do when nobody raises their hand. I'm picking you now. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
It means that you have served, but you've been honorably discharged also. So you're no longer active in the military.
Okay. I'm going to stop there. Just give you what Merriam-Webster defines it as. A former member of the armed forces, plain and simple. Now, I'm not saying this to correct you or stand corrected. I think that that's part, you can be a dishonorably discharged veteran, but nobody want to talk about them. You got a dishonorable discharge. You should keep that a secret. Really, if you all knew what that meant, if you had a dishonorable discharge, you do not want to put it on a job application, okay? That's like saying, you know, I'm a criminal. I did things wrong in the military versus out here. Not that criminals don't deserve jobs. I'm just saying, we know how society is. You don't want that dishonorable, that DD. So yeah, that's it. How a veteran, and I just talked about that, so I won't read it to you. Just trying to keep myself on track with this. Sure, Miss Johnson understands. I don't have to follow the lesson plan word for word. So, why do we say thank you for your service? Miss Johnson.
You've done a great job.
Thank you. One more person? You got stars on your shoulder. You got to answer.
Because we owe them a debt that can never be repaid.
Man, that sounds like talking about your mother. Okay, thank you.
The main thing is acknowledgement.
Thank you. Acknowledgement. Acknowledgement, which is something you spoke of, and it was a sad part of our history. Acknowledgement that you all didn't get. You know, Vietnam was just as serious as anything else. And I was seriously stupid enough to think I wanted to go there. Okay, anybody that's been can tell me, you know, probably it's a good thing your birthday came a little later. But yeah, that was just as serious. Before they even boarded a bus or a train, however it is they got to boot camp, before they put on the uniform for the first time, they took this oath. And I'm going to say it word for word, just the way I did it. My name was different then. I, Hassan Abdur-Raheem, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the same. And I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Anybody that calls themselves a veteran said that before they even put on a uniform. That's how you start. And my wife and some other people have made the significance of that to me more important, because sometimes I play down my service because I was only in the Navy band. I wasn't in Vietnam. But I mentioned at the beginning that we're here to acknowledge, despite the risk and sacrifice, these people who raised their hand and said that oath. Understand this, when you raise your hand to become a member of the United States Armed Forces, you can't start making exceptions that it suits you. You swear to take on whatever task may be assigned, including combat duty, if necessary, no matter the specific job that you've signed up for. It's the only place in America where you can get a job, and that's going to be your number one job, whether you ever do it or not. Okay? Everybody in boot camp had to learn to shoot a rifle accurately. Okay, what you did after that, you wasn't leaving if you couldn't spot something and hit it. Okay? After a few weeks of intensive training, you graduate from boot camp and you move on with your active or reserve service career. That's where I'm going to transition to really what's my theme. What happens after the military? The majority of military personnel are either discharged or they retire and continue with life as usual. And that's good. But what about those whose lives have been changed? Some dramatically for the worse. I don't know the current number, but a few years ago, veterans were committing suicide at an alarming rate of 22 per day. You heard me right, 22 veteran suicides per day. You may have heard the story or maybe not, but during that time, a veteran who obviously needed more help than he was getting took it upon himself one beautiful Sunday afternoon to go to the VA Regional Output Center in Northfield, which was closed at the time because it's not open on Sunday, where he doused himself with gasoline and lit himself on fire, committing suicide at the door of the VA. Is this an indication of the VA not getting it done? Maybe. But such a blanket statement would be a disservice to the frontline workers who do a great job for vets. Or it could be that the VA has just what the veteran needs, but the veteran doesn't know about it or doesn't realize his or her own need for help. There are far too many factors and things to consider for me to stand here and point the finger. I know that I cannot change the world, but what I would like to do today is to have at least one person here, and as I said, starting with myself, to get involved. Get involved with one of the organizations, okay? Even in the smallest way, to help veterans and advocate for their needs and rights. It could be as simple as encouraging them to know about or look into the different organizations that are around. I don't see DAV or it's different organizations. You can look into it, decide which one. One of the things I had a comfort level with right away was seeing people I knew. Because I did a veterans thing last week and I was like, man, I got to join something myself. So you all sealed it. So when I saw Mr. Mike, I'm like, that's it.
Amen.
Okay. My veteran status is honorably discharged, disabled veteran. As such, I have many years of dealing with the VA where disability and getting help are concerned. I can see that the VA has improved since my discharge in 1978. But in all fairness to me and millions more veterans, where policy and regulations are concerned, they need to step it up. One policy in particular applies to monetary compensation. The lack of retroactive pay for disability compensation needs to change from applying to all claims across the board to a case-by-case policy. Now, I made up this example, but this definitely is what I would think is a good one. If a service member is working in the kitchen and cuts his or her pinky severely, and of course they will get medical attention, stitches at the very least, they are able to return to duty with restrictions for the still healing finger. Once the wound is completely healed, the person notices limited mobility in the finger and gets physical therapy for it. 2 years after it happened, the person is discharged, but does not file for disability compensation. A few years later, he or she cannot use the finger at all and decides to file a disability claim with the VA. An examination is performed and it is determined that the loss of usage of the finger is service connected. Here's where the problem comes in. Even though the VA does not deny that the problem with the finger is a result of the accident, let's say 5 years earlier, if the veteran filed the claim 4 months ago, that's as far back as the retro pay will go. The reason I know for certain that it works this way is because of my personal story. On August 14, 1978, while serving in the U.S. Navy band, we were flying from Guam to Ulithi for a performance when our plane crashed into the Philippine Sea with some loss of life and many severe injuries. As a result, I filed my first claim for disability compensation on December 21st, 1978, day after my discharge, and was denied. But I continued to file every year unsuccessfully for at least 10 years. I finally just quit trying. Many years later, in 2011, someone told me about the Veteran Service Organization, VSO, an organization that advocates for veterans in getting compensation. So I spoke with a representative who within 6 months obtained disability compensation for me for the first time. That was 33 years after the plane crash. My retroactive pay went back only 6 months to the date of filing the latest claim instead of back to 1978 when the VA acknowledged that disabilities had occurred. Because I filed subsequent claims, the percentage has increased more than once for the same 1978 injuries. Each time it increased my percentage. There was no retroactive pay beyond the date of the most recent claim. That's the part I'm talking about, that most recent claim, things that can go back further than I've been alive. My uncle has one from World War II that's not closed yet. I'm currently fighting the VA by way of legal representation to obtain the percentage that my very first VSO representative said that I should have received in 1978. I share this not to vent anger or draw pity. I share it to give you the impact of outdated policies on millions of veterans, past and present. I'll close my personal story with this. My uncle, Mr. Thomas D. Jefferson, is a 96-year-old World War II veteran who is still fighting with the VA for additional compensation for his service-connected disability in 1945. I would like to use my story to tie back to each of us doing whatever we can to help the millions of veterans to better serve the VA. Start within your family and stretch out to your neighbors or members of your religious communities by researching and helping them to research the programs and benefits available. I didn't know anything about the VSO, the organization that helped me to finally get compensation 33 years after my first application, until someone simply told me they exist. Your helping a vet could be just that simple. I'll say that again. Your helping a vet could be just that simple. All of us, veterans and civilians alike, have a role to play in supporting veterans. Sometimes just sitting down to talk with veterans or their family members can go a long way. Let them know they're not alone. And if you can, work with the various veterans organizations to donate your time to give back to those who served. It is the very organizations that fight against things you may not even notice, like a bill that was recently put forth that would reduce disability compensation benefits. How many of you all knew about that? That there's a bill out there? One person. Okay, so if you read something or you see something, don't just pass it by. You don't have to be the captain of this unit. You could do that one thing and say, hey, I want to let Joe Biden or the guy in charge of VA know that, I don't think this is right. Okay, if 1 million, 2 million people did that, they'd listen. Baron Pitts. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you for taking the time to honor our veterans. Thank all of you very much for attending and having me as your speaker today. I am proud to be a United States Navy veteran. God bless you all, bless veterans, and bless the United States of America.